Hey everyone, this is Somnath Gaudar from Future Coders. In this video, we are going to be building this simple JavaScript project using DOM array methods. For example, we will be using map, sort, reduce, and filter array methods to build up this project. As you can see, we are actually using this random user generator API which generates random users. So we are generating some random users, and we will be adding some wealth to those users. So if I click on add user, it's gonna generate one more random user. As you can see, it just generated a new random user and added some wealth to them. Now if I click on this double money, which is actually using the map array method, if I use double money, it's gonna loop and add and double this money. As you can see, it's just doubling the wealth. Now if I click on this show millionaires, it's gonna use the filter array method to show only the millionaires. So if I click on this show only millionaires, only these two should appear, right? So if I click on this show millionaires, as you can see, only these millionaires are appearing. Now if I add some users and double their money, okay, now let's just double one. Okay, as you can see, again we have sort by richest, which is going to be using the sort array method. Now if I click on this sort, as you can see, it just sorts by richest. Whoever the richest is going to be on the top. Now let's refresh this and let's test it one more time. Let's double the money. Okay, this person is having the highest wealth. So if I click on this sort by richest, as you can see, the person is appearing at the top. That's how we can use the sort array method. Now if I click on this calculate entire wealth, which we will be using reduce method. So if I click on this calculate entire wealth, it's gonna add these all values and display the entire wealth. Now if I click on that, as you can see, it just calculated the entire wealth. So this project is going to be very useful, and you will understand these array methods. These array methods are going to be commonly used in every project. So let's get started. Before we start building this, please make sure you subscribe to our channel, and also don't forget to leave a like on this video. So let's get started. Now let's open up our Visual Studio Code. Let's make the browser a little bit smaller. Okay, now let's import the folder for our project. So I have already created a folder for this project, so I'll be just importing that folder. It's going to be this one. Here I'm going to create an index.html file and a style.css file and also a JavaScript file, script.js. Okay, inside of our index.html, let's add some boilerplate by pressing exclamation and pressing enter, and the title is going to be DOM array methods. Now I'm going to right click and open with live server. If you don't know what open with live server is, you need to install an extension called as live server. Make sure you install this extension. Once you've installed, you can right click on this index.html and open with live server, or else you can right click over here and click on open with live server. This is gonna open up our project on the live server, as you can see over here. Okay, now let's link our styles.css to our project, which is style.css. Now let's also link the script tag, that's the JavaScript file. Script source is going to be the script.js file. Now inside of our body, let's add some HTML. Let's define h1. It's going to say DOM array methods. Right after that, we are going to have a container, division with the class name of container, and it's going to have an aside tag. Inside of the aside tag, we are going to have some bunch of buttons. As you've seen in the at the beginning, that we had a bunch of those buttons, right? Add user, double money, like that. So we are going to have a button with an ID of add user. The first one is going to be add user. So the button is going to say add user, and we are going to have 4 more of these buttons. So let's copy these 4 more times. And the second one is going to be for the double. We will use this button to double money. And the third button, we only want to show millionaires, right? So it's going to have an ID of show millionaires, and it's going to say show millionaires. Okay, now the fourth button, it's going to we'll be using it for the sort. So it's going to sort by richest. So sort by richest. And finally, the last button, is used to calculate the entire wealth. Calculate entire, it should just say can calculate wealth. Here it should say calculate entire wealth. And we forgot it to add some minus tag over here. Okay, there we have our buttons. After this aside tag, inside of the division only, we need to define a main tag with an ID of main. Inside of the main, we are going to have an s2 tag, and inside we are going to have a strong tag. Strong is going to say person, and inside of the s2 we are going to say wealth. There we have, right? So we just added our HTML. Now it's time to style this a little bit. So let's do that. Now inside of our style, let's select everything. Let's set the box sizing to border box, and let's select the whole body tag. Let's set the background color to F4, 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 and font family, we are going to be using a font family Arial, Helvetica. Okay, and let's set the display of flex, and flex direction is going to be column. Align items to the center, and min height is going to be 100 view height, and margin is going to be 0. Now let's target the container. That's going to be this container over here, which is having this aside and this main tag. Let's target that. Display of flex, and padding is going to be 20 pixels for the entire container, and margin is going to be 0 to the top and bottom, and auto to left and right. Max width is going to be 100%, and the actual width is going to be 800 pixels. Okay, that's great. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Okay, now for the aside tag, let's target that. Let's set the padding to 10 pixels and 20 pixels. Let's set the width to 250 pixels, and the border right is going to be 1 pixel solid, this black color. That's right. Now it's time to design these buttons. Let's target those. Let's set the cursor to pointer. The background color is going to be white color. Border radius 5 pixels, and border we're gonna set it to solid 1 pixels and black color. That's great. Now let's say display of block, and let's set the width to 100%. Let's set the padding 10 pixels, margin to the bottom 20 pixels, font weight bold. Finally, let's set the font size to 14 pixels. Okay, now let's target this main area. I'm going to set the flex to 1 so that it takes as much as space, and padding is going to be 10 pixels top and bottom and 20 pixels to the left and right. Now let's target the S2. That's going to be this one. This person is enclosed within the strong tag. Let's target the S2 tag. Border bottom is going to be 1 pixels solid, this black color, and padding to the bottom 10 pixels, display of flex, and justify content to space between. Reason I'm giving the space between here is, as you can see, there are two tags. There are a strong tag also, right? So if I specify space between, then it's gonna separate this and it's gonna leave space between these two elements. Now here, let's set the font weight to 300 and margin is going to be 0, 0 and 20 pixels. Now let's also add the styling which we are gonna need when we add some user which is going to be displayed over here. Let's also add S3. Reason I'm doing this is because I want to complete the style part completely. So while we are working on the JavaScript, we will be working only on the JavaScript. We will not be shifting back to style. So let's add everything, every styles. So we will be using a background color to the S3. This white color. Border bottom is going to be 1 pixels solid black color. We will be using this S3 tag to show the entire wealth, which is going to be appear right after all of those person. So here padding is going to be 10 pixels, display of flex, justify content is going to be space between, font weight is going to be 300, margin 20 pixels, 0 and 0. Now let's also, we are going to say a person tag. We are going to have a person container which is going to display each of those person we saw in the beginning, right? So inside of the person tag, person container, we are going to say display of flex and justify content space between. You will get to know what these two elements are going to, we will be using where in the JavaScript. When we shift to JavaScript, you will know why we displayed this s3 and person. Don't worry about that. Space between, and font size is going to be 20 pixels. Margin to the bottom 10 pixels. As you can see, now to demonstrate what this s3 and person over here, let's add something over here. Here I'm going to say s3 entire wealth. This is going to be for the only for demonstration. Wealth, something like this. As you can see, it should be displayed in the main over here. As you can see, in the beginning we saw that it was displaying entire wealth, right? So that's why we will be using this s3 tag. Of course, this will be added from the JavaScript. So I'm just gonna remove this from this over here. Similarly with the person, it's gonna display a person name here and the wealth. So that's why we will be using the space between tag. So we completed our styling. So we need to add some functionality. So we need to actually work on JavaScript now. So let's do that. Now inside of our JavaScript, let's grab everything that we need. We are gonna need the main. That's going to be this one. Let's grab that. Const main. I can grab that by saying document dot get element by id. It's having the id of main. I can grab it like that. Let's also access add user button, which is having the class name. Sorry, the id get element by id, which is having the id of add user. Now let's also grab the double button which we have. Let's say document dot get element by id. I can grab that by saying it is having the id, right? Double. Let's also grab const show millionaire button. Millionaire button, make sure I spelled it right. Okay, I will say document dot get element by id. It is having the class id of show millionaires. Now let's also grab sort button by saying document dot get element by id. It is having the id of sort. Now let's also grab that calculate wealth button, calculate wealth button by saying document dot get element by id, and it's having the id of calculate wealth. That's what we need. Now let's initialize a variable. Let data is going to be an empty array. We are going to fill this data with an object with a name. It's going to have a first name and a last name inside of the name, and also a money value, which is going to be the wealth. So first I need to actually generate a random user, right? I can do that by going to randomuser.me. I can actually use their API, which is used to generate a random user. I can show that to you. If I use this API, as you can see, it is getting the results. It's going to give me a random user. It's going to be it's going to give me the first name, last name, and all other data. For now, we are going to be only using this first name and last name, and we are going to add a money value to this random user. So here, let's define an async function to fetch data from this API. Let's add a comment fetch random user and add money. Here I'm gonna say async. It's going to be an asynchronous function. Async function. I'm gonna name it as get random user. Inside of the this function, I'm gonna say define a const response is going to be await. I'm gonna fetch the data from this API. Now once I get that data, I'm gonna store it in the data variable by saying await rest.json. Now once I get the data, let's console log the data to see what are we actually getting. If I head over to my console, okay, actually we need to call this function first. I'm gonna call this function at the top here, get random user. I'm gonna call it 3 times to get 3 random users. As you can see, we actually got 3 random users. If I open up that, as you can see, we are having results here. You can see at the index, at the array, which is at the index 0, we are actually getting all the data. What we are interested in is, actually we are interested in this name, first and this last name. So here I can say const, I can grab the user by saying data dot results. That's going to be this results, and inside of that the first array that's going to be present at the index 0. Now if I save and console log the user, as you can see, we get 3 objects with the results. That's going to be, we are interested in this name, we are going to grab that. Now here I'm gonna create a const new user. I'm gonna create a new user with an object. Inside of the object, we are gonna say, we are gonna have a name field. Let's use template strings. I need to access the first name and last name, right? I can do that by saying user dot name dot first. That's like this. That's going to be in the user dot name dot first. Okay, and also let's leave some space, user dot name dot last. And also I also need to add a money value, which is going to be up to 1,000,000. Let's say math dot floor, I need to generate a random number between 0 and 1,000,000. I need to say here into multiplied by 1,000,000. Okay, now if I save that and console log this new user, console log this actually new user, as you can see, there we have our 3 random users with money value added to them, as you can see. Now I need to add this data to this array, right? So I can say, I can define one more function for that. I will say add data. It's going to be a separate function. It's going to pass, it's going to have a new user passed in, and here it's saying add data is not defined. Actually we need to define that. Here I will say add new object to data array. Let's define that function. Function add data, it's gonna take in the object which we are passing, and I'm just gonna say data dot push object. Okay, now we have the data stored in this data array. Now we actually need to work on displaying the random users and their wealth over here in the DOM. So here I'm gonna call one more function here, which I'm gonna create. It's going to be update DOM. I'm gonna call that function over here, and here I need to define that. Let's add a comment update DOM. Let's define that function update DOM. Here I'm gonna clear the main div by saying main dot inner HTML, and I'm gonna set it to whatever we have over here in the main. So that's going to be this one, right? Let's copy that and paste it over here. That's clearing, that's called clearing. Now again, here after we created, here I need to have access to the array, right? So I can have access to the array by saying provided data is equals to the data. In this function, the data that is going to be this array will be passed as the default value, default parameter. So I can use that inside of this function by saying provided data. So here let's call provided data. On that I'm going to call a for each. For each is going to take an individual item. It's going to perform some operation on individual array items over here, and for them I'm going to create an element by saying const element. We can create new items by saying document dot create element, and let's create a div. Okay, now on to that element I need to add element, and to that element I need to add a class list. I need to add a class by saying add. I want to add the person class on that div. Remember we already declared that a person over here, that class name, so we are gonna just assign that. And once we have that division, we are gonna set element dot inner HTML. I'm gonna use template literals. Here I'm gonna define a strong tag. Inside of the strong tag I'm gonna access item dot name, and outside it should be strong. Okay, and outside I'm gonna access the item dot money, which are present inside the array, right? We can access the object that's going to be this one, item dot name. So here if I save that, nothing actually happens. We actually need to append this right into the main. Here I'm gonna say main dot append child, and append that newly created element. Now if I save that, as you can see, there we have our 3 random users. Now as you can see that this actually doesn't look like money, right? It's just a random number. It's looking like a random number. So let's format that as a money, right? So here I'm gonna call one more function. I'm gonna use one more function over here. Let's define that. I'm gonna say format money as format that number as money. I'm gonna define one function here, function format money. It's gonna take in a number, and inside of this function over here I actually got a solution from Stack Overflow by searching for how to format numbers as a currency inside of the Stack Overflow. I think that's going to be, let's see, I found that solution right here. Okay, short and fast solution. I'm just gonna copy this and paste it over here, and it takes in a number and formats it as like this. Okay, as a money, right? So here it's not gonna take in this number. I'm just gonna pass that number. Whatever number is passed to it, it's gonna convert it to a money. I'm just gonna return that, and I will call that function when I say here. Okay, let's call that function over here when I actually display the money. Let's call that by saying format money. Let's wrap it around. Now if I save that, as you can see, the money is actually getting formatted as the money. Sorry, the number is actually getting formatted as the money. One thing I also want to add is a dollar symbol, a money symbol, right? So here I will add a money symbol and I'm gonna concatenate it. Now if I save that, as you can see, there we have our money symbol and the number. Reason why this is not living in space here is we're not actually, the browser is actually too short for the size, so here I'm just gonna reduce the size. Okay, that looks great. Now let's work on adding the functionality to whenever we click on this button, it should actually add a new random user, right? So here we already have a function to get the random user, and we are already calling this 3 times. So here I'm just gonna add an event listener on the add user button. That's going to be this button, add event listener. It's gonna listen for the click and it's gonna fire off a function that's going to be the same function that gets the random user. So if I save that, it's gonna get 3 random users, and if I click on add user, it's gonna get me one more random user. If I click on it one more time, it's gonna get me one more random user. Okay, now let's work on this double money button. So when I click on that, it actually doubles everyone's money. So let's work on that. I'm going to define the function over here, double money. The function is going to say function double money, and here we are going to use the map array method. The map array method returns a new array, right? So here I will directly say data, since it is stored using a let data, so that I can directly modify it. Here I will say data dot map on that array. I'm gonna get each user. I'm gonna map on each user and grab or return. I'm just gonna copy everything that's already inside of the user and say I'm gonna set the money as user.money into 2 so that it doubles, right? So now if I save that, and I actually need to call the update DOM so that it actually updates inside of the DOM here. Now if I save that, and I also need to add an event listener on this double button. So let's add an event listener dot add event listener. I'm going to listen for the click, and it's gonna call a function double money. Now if I save that and click on double money, as you can see, the money is actually getting doubled. Okay, now let's work on this show only millionaires so that it shows only millionaires. Okay, let's work on that. Here where we have this double money, I'm just gonna add one more function. I'm just gonna use the filter method over here, filter only millionaires. So for the function, I'm gonna define the function show millionaires. Here I will say it's also going to return a new array, so I can actually modify it directly by saying data, and here I will actually access the data which is present currently. So here I will perform the filter on the each user, and it's gonna return the user.money. If the user.money is greater than a million, then it's gonna return the user. That's going to be the array. If the user.money is greater than a million, that's what we want, right? So here it's gonna return that, and we also need to call the update DOM and save that. Now if I click on let it load, if I click on show only millionaires, as you can see, all are actually millionaires. So I actually made some mistake. 1 2 3. Okay, let's remove 1 0 over here. Okay, now these people are not millionaires, so let's make them millionaire by doubling their money. Now this guy is a millionaire, right? And this guy is also millionaire. So if I click on show only millionaires, it's not actually working. Why is that? That's because we didn't actually add any event listeners to that button. So here I will say, let's add an event listener to that by saying add event listener. It's gonna listen for the click, and it's gonna call a function show millionaires. Okay, sorry, that's the wrong way. Okay, now if I save that, as you can see, these are not millionaires, right? So let's make them millionaires. Okay, this guy is a millionaire. So if I say show only millionaires, nothing actually shows. Let's see one more. Let's check one more time. Okay, let's make them millionaires. Okay, actually those were actually not millionaires, so let's add one more user. Okay, as you can see, these guys are actually millionaires, right? So if I click on this show millionaires, so still nothing, right? So let's add the 0 over here again, back again, and here I need to actually make some modifications. I don't want to, let's remove these curly braces and also remove this, and now save. Okay, now if I double money, as you can see, this one is actually a millionaire, right? And this is also a millionaire. So if I click on the show millionaire, as you can see, only the millionaires actually appear. Let's see one more. Let's see, refresh one more time. Let's double their money. All of them are millionaires. So let's add two more users. So if I click on show millionaires, as you can see, only the millionaires are actually available. So now let's work on the sort by richest button. Let's define the function over here, sort by richest, and for the function I'm gonna say function sort by richest. Here I will say data dot sort, and I want to actually sort them I want to show the millionaires, the people who are having more wealth or at the top. So I will say here a comma b. This is a helper function which we need to define when working with numbers. So here I will say b dot money minus a dot money. This should work in the descending way. If you want to show them in the ascending way, this should be a dot money and b dot minus b dot money plus b dot money. Okay, so okay, now let's save that. Okay, now if I click on, let's add one more user. Okay, now if I double their money and sort by richest, it is actually not working. Why is that? I always forget to add the, what do you say, event listeners. So let's add that on the sort button. That's my bad. I always forget that. Add event listener. It's gonna listen for the click, and it's gonna fire off this function sort by richest. Now if I save that, and if I click on sort by richest, nothing actually happens. That's because I actually forget to add update DOM. I'm forgetting a lot of things actually. Let's see if this actually works or not. So if I click on sort by richest, and that finally works, we are sorting by the richest. Now let's work on this final one, calculate entire wealth, to calculate all of these values. So here let's define that function. Let's add that over here, calculate wealth. Let's define that function calculate wealth. Here I'm gonna define a const of wealth is going to be, I'm gonna use the reduce method for this one. I'm gonna say data.reduce. It's gonna take an accumulator and the actual user, and here I'm gonna say accumulator is equals to accumulator plus user dot money, and here I need to specify the starting value, so it's going to be 0. Now once I do that, I need to create a element here, const wealth element, by saying document dot create element. I'm going to create a div, and here I will say wealth element dot inner HTML, and actually I need to say here, let's use the template literals here. Let's define an s3 tag, total wealth is going to be in the strong here, and that's going to be over here. I will say it should be formatted as the money, so I'm going to call the format money function, and I will pass the wealth. Now if I save that, nothing actually happens. That's because I need to actually append this s3 to main. So here I will say main append child to wealth element, should be okay, wealth element. Now if I save that, and actually this time I won't forget, I need to actually add an event listener for this by saying over here dot add event listener. I'm going to listen for the click, and I will say calculate wealth. Now if I click on calculate entire wealth, as you can see, the entire wealth has been calculated. So that's it guys for this video. Hope you guys learned something, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a like on this video, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more projects like this. So I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.